Imagine for a second, what if you could actually see the future? Not, literally with a crystal ball, but with such clarity, such insight that you could sidestep pitfalls and, well, guarantee success. What if you could sort of nudge fortune your way? Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving deep into an idea that touches on exactly that, planning all the way to the end. And we're drawing these really powerful insights straight from Law 29 of the 48 Laws of Power. It's a fascinating look at strategy and human nature.
Right. And the core idea here, it's not just, hey, I have a goal. It's much deeper. It's about picturing the entire path.
Yeah.
Every step, anticipating the roadblocks, thinking about unintended consequences, and crucially, how your own efforts might get reversed or even hijacked by others. It's really about thinking so far ahead that you aren't just reacting to things. You know when you've reached the actual end point.
So our mission today is to really unpack this for you. We've got history, fables, some philosophy. We want to show the huge difference between just like wishing for something and having that concrete, far-reaching foresight. It's a game changer.
Definitely. We'll look at what happens when you don't plan to the end, the disasters, and then contrast that with what's possible when you master this skill, this almost godlike ability, as the source calls it.
Okay, let's get into it. One of the first things the sources point out is, well, it seems most people are guided more by emotion, by the heart, than by cold, hard logic. And this leads to fuzzy plans, right? And just constantly improvising.
And that raises a big question, doesn't it? Why do we tend to react instead of foresee? I mean, Clausewitz noted very few men are able to think and feel beyond the present moment. It's tough. And our sources really hammer this home. Improvising just gets you through the next crisis. It's never a substitute for real long-term planning. Montaigne even said we start things and then they end up guiding us. Kind of scary, actually.
Yeah, it sounds like we get so caught up in the happy ending we want. We sort of blind ourselves to the actual steps, the difficulties. We delude ourselves a bit. And this brings us to a really vivid example, a cautionary tale. It's about someone with a massive dream, but well, he was ultimately destroyed because he just couldn't plan all the way. Let's talk about Vasco Núñez de Balboa. So picture this. 1510. Balboa, a Spanish nobleman. He's obsessed with find of El Dorado, but he's broke. He actually has to stow away in a crate, hiding from creditors just to get on a ship heading from Hispaniola to Venezuela. Quite the start.
Right, and when they find him, the ship's owner, Enciso, he is furious, wants to maroon him, but then chance intervenes. The colony they were meant to rescue, abandoned, chaos. Balboa sees his opening. He starts talking up his previous travels in Panama, dropping hints about gold. He basically convinces the crew, who were pretty desperate themselves, to spare him and start a new settlement, Darien. He used the immediate crisis.
He definitely had guts, getting himself out of tight spots like that. But those actions had ripples. He turned away a guy sent by the Spanish crown, the official governor, who then, unfortunately, drowned on his way back. Under Spanish law, this made Balboa an outlaw. Technically, a murderer even? Not great if you need the king's blessing for El Dorado, right?
Exactly. He solved one problem but created a potentially bigger one down the road. He wasn't thinking long-term consequences. And here's where his reactive nature really shines, The local Panamanians tell him about this huge ocean on the other side and about Peru, that's the Incas. So what does Balboa do? He immediately decides, I'll cross the jungle, be the first European to see the Pacific. He figures this amazing feat for Spain will get him pardoned and let him finally march on El Dorado. Again, reacting to the immediate opportunity.
So 1513, he goes for it. 190 soldiers. It's brutal swamps, disease, hostile tribes. Only about 60 make it. But he does it. He climbs a peak and becomes the first European to see the vast Pacific Ocean. A few days later, he wades into the water, fully armored, claiming everything for Spain. Pretty traumatic stuff.
Absolutely. And the local tribes, they're impressed. They bring him gold, jewels, pearls, and they point south towards the Incas. Now, here it is. The critical failure. The moment his lack of endgame planning becomes fatal. Balboa, with just a handful of exhausted men, decides, okay, back to Darien and his plan. Send the treasure back to Spain as a, down payment and ask for a big army to conquer El Dorado.
So the big mistake, what the sources really emphasize, is that he should have kept quiet about the Incas, right? Until he was actually ready, until he had the means to conquer Peru himself.
Exactly. He showed his hand too early, and the sources warned the vultures would hover once they heard the word gold.
And those vultures weren't just rival explorers, were they?
No. It's bureaucracy, jealousy, the king's advisors, other ambitious nobles, anyone who would benefit from his discovery or block him. Once the word was out, his control was gone.
So the news gets to Spain. Balboa's a hero. He's made governor. Looks like it worked out.
.ut. The king also sends out a rival, Pedrerius, officially to arrest Balboa for that old murder charge, but really to take over. Balboa gets pardoned eventually, but he's forced to share the governorship with this jealous guy, Pedrerius. And for Balboa, driven by this singular vision of personal glory, sharing? That's impossible. He's still just reacting, not managing the situation strategically.
So he tries another big, bold move, also not really planned out. He suggests crossing the isthmus again, this time hauling shipbuilding stuff, to build a fleet on the Pacific side.
Yeah, logistical nightmare. Hundreds of his men die just moving the materials, the timber rots in the jungle humidity.
He's still pushing, but his forces are just too weak now. He has to go back to Darien, defeated in this attempt.
And Pedrerius sees his chance. He kind of lures Balboa into a meeting, says they need to talk plans. And who meets Balboa just outside the settlement? Francisco Pizarro, an old comrade, someone who'd crossed the isthmus with him. Yeah. But Pizarro's leading soldiers. It's a trap. Pizarro arrests him. Balboa is tried on fake rebellion charges. A few days later, he and his key followers beheaded. And years down the line, Pizarro conquers Peru. Balboa. Largely forgotten.
Oh, it's just such a stark story. A huge dream, incredible initial success, but ultimately just a vague plan. His discovery of the Pacific totally overshadowed because, as the sources put it, he committed the ultimate sin. He failed to plan to the end.
Locked in the moment. Emotional reactions, never thinking several moves ahead, never knowing when to consolidate, when to stop.
Okay, let's pause on that for a second to really hammer this point home. There's a short fable from Aesop, the two frogs. So two frogs lived in a pool. The pool dries up in the summer heat. They need a new home. They hop along and find a deep well full of water. One frog says, great, let's jump in. Shelter, water, food.
Makes sense, right? Immediate problem solved.
But the other frog is more cautious. He says, hang on, what if this water dries up too? How would we ever get out from way down there?
And the moral is just so direct. Do nothing without a regard to the consequences. Simple, but so often missed. People see the immediate solution, like Balboa saw the Pacific.
But they don't think about the what-ifs, the potential downsides, the exit strategy. Okay, so from Balboa's failure, let's pivot to a masterclass in doing it right, planning all the way. Let's talk about Otto von Bismarck, the Prussian premier, starting around 1863.
Right. And what's really striking about Bismarck, right from the get-go, is his clarity. He had one single overarching goal: create an independent German state led by Prussia. That was his end. No fuzziness there.
So his first big play, war with Denmark over Schleswig-Holstein, looked like a land grab.
On the surface, yeah. But the sources dig deeper. His real aim: stir up Prussian nationalism, unite the country. He even ropes Austria into helping him fight Denmark. Then, after they win, he demands the territories for Prussia.
Sneaky.
Very. Austria was furious, but they had to back down. Prussia looked strong, assertive. It was all part of the bigger picture.
Okay, so step one achieved. What's next in this grand plan?
Bolder still. 1866. He maneuvers King William of Prussia into leaving the old German Federation and declaring war on Austria, his former ally.
Wow. That must have been controversial.
Hugely. The Queen, the Crown Prince, other German states, they were all against it. But Bismarck, he forced the issue, led to the short 7 Weeks' War. Prussia won decisively.
And here's where his genius really comes in, isn't it? After they win, everyone, the king, the generals, they want to march on Vienna, grab Austrian land.
Great. The natural impulse, more conquest, more glory.
But Bismarck says no. He actually stops them, positions himself as moderate, peaceful even.
Exactly. The treaty gave Prussia and its allies total independence. Prussia became the leader of the new North German Confederation. He specifically refused Austrian land because grabbing territory wasn't his ultimate goal. His end was German unification under Prussia, not Austrian humiliation. That self-control is key.
Amazing. So what's the final piece?
3 years later, 1870, he provokes a war with France. Why? To rally all the German states, north and south, against a common enemy, another swift victory. This time, the German Empire is finally declared. Interestingly, Bismarck actually didn't want to take Alsace-Lorraine from France, but the generals insisted. He conceded on that point, maybe seeing it as a minor deviation that wouldn't derail the main goal.
So by now, Europe is terrified of this Iron Chancellor, right? They must be thinking, what's next? Who's he going to conquer now?
You'd think so. Everyone expected more wars, more expansion.
But then, nothing.
Pretty much. He stops. Why? Why didn't he push for more colonies, more European territory like everyone else was doing? The sources are clear. Because founding the unified German Empire was the end of his original plan. He'd reached his goal.
He wasn't interested in endless conquest.
No. He wanted security, stability for the state he'd built. He spent the rest of his career holding back the generals, holding back the king, keeping Germany out of major conflicts. He knew when to stop.
That contrast with Balboa is just incredible. Bismarck had that concrete goal. He knew the end point. And he had that godlike self-control the sources mention, to not let immediate victories or other people's ambitions push him past his carefully planned conclusion. He secured his legacy.
It reminds me of the ancient Greeks. They saw the gods as having this complete future-seeing vision. Humans, mostly victims of fate, trapped in the moment, but heroes like Odysseus, guys who could think ahead, plan meticulously. They seemed almost godlike themselves, defying fate.
And that idea still resonates, doesn't it? People who can genuinely think several steps ahead, they just seem more powerful, more in control. But most of us, the sources argue, are too stuck, imprisoned in the moment. We just react. We get swayed by desires, by fears. We might think we're planning, but often we're just focusing on that fuzzy, happy ending we hope for.
Yeah, like wishful thinking masquerading as a strategy. Think about the ancient Athenians again. 415 BC, that Sicilian expedition. They dreamt of riches, power, a glorious end to the war. Sound familiar? Like Balboa's El Dorado. But they completely failed to foresee their enemies uniting, or their own forces getting stretched too thin.
They saw the potential reward, not the potential catastrophe.
Exactly. Led by the heart, not the head. And it led to the ruin of Athens. Didn't think about how to get out of the well.
There was this 17th century French cardinal, de Retz. He analyzed why so many grand plans fail. And he observed something really interesting. People are usually too much frightened at the present danger and not enough so at that which is remote.
That's insightful. We dodged the little problem right in front of us.
Only to stumble right into a much bigger one down the road because we weren't looking far enough ahead. We don't see those distant dangers gathering.
It makes you wonder, right? How many mistakes could we all avoid if we just trained ourselves to see those remote dangers taking shape? So much of exercising power effectively is not just what you do, but sometimes what you don't do.
Resisting that rash impulse?
Exactly. Not letting vague ideas lead you into trouble. And those vultures we mentioned, they prey on vagueness. They exploit plans that haven't been fully thought through and secured.
There's another quick example. France, 1848. This politician, Thiers, he's losing. So, desperately, he helps elect Louis Bonaparte, Napoleon's nephew, thinking the guy's an imbecile he can easily manipulate and discard later.
He only saw the immediate win, right? Getting his guy, or who he thought was his guy, into power. The happy ending for Thiers. But he completely missed one crucial detail. Bonaparte wasn't an imbecile. He was incredibly ambitious.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. 3 years later, Bonaparte dissolves parliament, declares himself Emperor Napoleon III, and rules for 18 years. Thiers was horrified.
Another case of focusing only on the desired outcome, not the potential twists or the actual nature of the people involved. So the lesson seems to be the conclusion, the end point. It has to be crystal clear. Always keep it in mind. You need to anticipate crises that might make you want to just wing it.
And figure out how to protect your gains from those vultures, rivals, circumstances, whatever might undermine your success after you've achieved it. Because when you can see several steps ahead, when you have that endpoint defined, you're just less likely to be swayed by emotion or the temptation to improvise. That clarity, it gets rid of the anxiety, the vagueness that sinks so many efforts. You know where you're going, and you don't let things knock you too far off course.
Now, a final thought here. Obviously, you can't predict everything. You need some flexibility, right, for unexpected events.
Absolutely. And the sources acknowledge that. Some adaptability is crucial, like Bismarck allowing the Alsace-Lorraine annexation.
But the key point seems to be that most people lose out far more because their plans are too vague, too improvised, than because they were too rigid or overplanned.
Exactly. Having a clear map, even if you need to take a detour, is way better than wandering aimlessly. That freedom to adapt actually comes from having a solid plan in the first place.
So refusing to think ahead, refusing to plan to the end.
No good can come from that. That's the bottom line.
Wow. Okay, we have really covered some ground today on this whole idea of planning all the way to the end. We saw Balboa, huge achievement, discovering the Pacific, but ultimately forgotten because he couldn't see past the next step. Tragic, really.
And then Bismarck, shaping an empire through meticulous, long-range vision, knowing exactly when he'd achieved his goal and securing it. I think the critical takeaway here is that this isn't just abstract knowledge, it's about applying it. Moving past just wishing for things, and developing that disciplined ability to foresee the path, the obstacles, the consequences. Not like a psychic, but through hard thinking.
Shaping reality, not just reacting to it.
Yeah.
So for you listening, here's something to think about. How can you bring this kind of foresight into your own life,
Yeah.
your career, your projects? Are there any happy endings you're focused on? Maybe blinding yourself to the actual messy path to get there.
Yeah, or any remote dangers, those circling vultures that you might be ignoring because you're only looking at what's right in front of you. Because remember, the ending is everything. Planning all the way to the end gives you the power not just to reach your goals, but to make sure the rewards, the glory, stay yours, safe from chance, safe from rivals.